This is Monday Night Reading. It's our first of our 2026 season. Kicking us off is Scott Todd, and we are so delighted that he is here. Scott is the author of Fix This Next for Real Estate Investors. And the thing that's interesting is before he finished the first one, he started the second one. So we're going to talk about both, I think, today, but we'll celebrate right now this book, Fix This Next for Real Estate Investors. And Laura, if you can tell us about Scott.
I'd love to tell everybody about Scott. Hi, Scott.
Right.
So, Scott Todd is a real estate investor, entrepreneur, public speaker, and an educator. Rising to the role of vice president at a Fortune 300 company, Scott turned a side hustle into a full-time investing business. In 4 years, he grew it by 1,000%, replaced his corporate income, and brought back his freedom. And along the way, he learned something most entrepreneurs miss. They fix the wrong problem at the wrong time. So to solve this, Scott created the Investor Priority Pyramid, IPP, a simple compass that shows real estate entrepreneurs exactly what to fix next. With it, the guesswork is gone. He's taught more than 2,000 investors how to start and scale in real estate with his framework, helping them escape overwhelm, earn consistent profit, and grow with confidence. Scott holds an accounting degree and an MBA, as well as a postgraduate certificate from the MIT Sloan School of Management, but his real education came in the trenches. He's juggled a corporate career while building his investing business from scratch. Scott's mission is simple: help overwhelmed entrepreneurs avoid burnout and earn their freedom faster. And I'll put ways to stay connected in the chat. AJ?
Love that. I love when Laura does the bio. It's so good. So Scott, we have to do this before we dig in. You wrote a derivative of Fix This Next by Mike Michalowicz. And when you came into Top 3 Book Workshop, you were trying to choose between a couple different books. Can you illuminate everyone about your thinking through that process and why you landed on doing Fix This Next for real estate investors?
Yes. So when I started T3, I was kind of on the fence. And at the time when I signed up for T3, I really didn't know about the world of derivatives. I mean, I knew that they existed and I had read some of them, but I never really thought like, okay, I could take something and turn into my own. And I kind of like ignored it. And I had this idea, okay, I'm going to write a book for my business, but not necessarily for basically for my buyers. I was going to write a book for the buyers of real estate. And I still might go back at some point and write it, but I kept saying to myself, like, that's not really the book that I want to write. What I want to write and what I want to leave is the thing that's always interested me since I was a kid, which is entrepreneurship and business. And the one thing I would hate to like have is I got this book and yet it's helped people, but if it's not about the thing that I really, really want, like the legacy to be about, I really didn't want to do it. I was kind of torn. And so I had talked to AJ because if you think about T3, you have to go in there and, you're kind of like, hey, this is what my book conceptually is about. And I prepared two of them. And I was like, well, I could write this book, but then I found this world of derivative books. And Laura had already started helping me make connection with AJ or with Mike Michalowicz's team. And so once that piece came into play, or once that puzzle piece fit in, it was very clear, like, okay, this is the book that I want to write. And I have the index cards ready to go to write the other book, and I look at it and I think, I know it would help people, but my heart just isn't in it. But I keep it because maybe one day it will be.
Yeah, I love that you followed your heart on it, and then you also wrote a damn good book. I think you made the right decision. But give us your fundamentals for this book, and then I have a couple follow-up questions before you do some reading. So
Okay.
tell us, who did you write it for?
Man, I cannot believe this. I even had it. I was like, I'm not going to get caught off guard there.
Okay,
And I
you're
did get
published
caught off
now,
guard.
so that means that you should just be able
You
to,
should know it. You
yeah.
should know it. All right, here it comes. I maybe not.
Well, while you pull it up, I think it's important to talk a little bit about what is it like to write something that is based on another author's work.
Um, it's it's a very interesting process because what happens is you uh, you on the one hand, it's somewhat I felt like it was somewhat easier because you almost had like a formula, if you will. Like you could look at it and say, hey, this is what has worked in the past. And then on the flip side of it, you're taking it and you're trying to find your stories and you're trying to find your examples and you're trying to find how your framework would fit in there because it's not a direct copy of someone else's framework. It's taking the basis of a framework, which is in Mike's case, the business priority pyramid. It's taking that business priority pyramid and saying, hey, what applies to my audience and what doesn't apply to my audience? And so you have kind of the bones, but you don't have the material and you kind of have the layout. And then you've got a third equation there, which is look, AJ and Mike write some dang good books, right? And so you look at that and you're like, the words that just come off this page in that book, how do you even, deliver anything of value there? And so then you get imposter syndrome. So you get this whole like, okay, I got it easy because I can see what the foundation looks like. And then you've got a hard because you're trying to follow in someone else's footsteps that's probably written, 10, 11. I don't know. At the time it was like 5 books or something. I don't know. But you're dealing with a different dynamic at play. It's a mental dynamic too.
I've got to say, one thing I'm proud of is the T3 folks who have written derivatives of Mike's books don't use the 10%. So you're contractually allowed to use 10% of Mike's books verbatim, and my people don't use them. And that's something I've always been proud of. Use your own words, Scott.
Yeah. There's pieces where the stories that were used just made sense.
Yeah, but you didn't lift it.
No, no.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's one piece where he talks about the Savannah Bananas building a network. I
Yeah.
thought that story was so great, so we used that one. But generally, we took the principles and applied it back to our audience.
Okay, so how are we doing? Do you have
We're
some
good. Yep.
fundamentals? Okay, hit us.
Okay. My reader statement is I am writing for real estate investors who want to replace their income with the profits from their real estate business, but they are overwhelmed by all the tasks they need to do and may not realize they simply don't know how to identify the most important next task. The core message is rather than trying to handle everything and putting out fires, identify which problem you need to fix next. And of course, the promise is by the end of the book, you will have a framework to identify your business's most pressing needs so that you can replace your income and achieve time freedom.
Love. Okay. Set up this first excerpt for us, Scott.
Okay. This is actually from the introduction of the book. And it really, I tried to, between here and the first chapter, I tried to meet the reader where they definitely were, where I was, and where they're probably stop or frozen. And so in this case, it starts off with me receiving an email, but it's actually from my ideal reader, my target reader. And it's the one last step to try to stop them from throwing in the towel.
Okay, and as a reminder, before Scott starts, we love the chatter in the chat. They give the chat to the author. So we want you to please put in what resonates with you, lines that make sense for you, lines that excite you. If you can show some support to Scott. And then Laura has also put some links in the chat where you can purchase a copy of Scott's book if it fits your budget. Maybe you have one that you want for yourself or one for a friend. I just want to put that little plug in there. All right, Scott, ready to go?
Okay, here we go. Urgent, stop all subscriptions. The email subject line caught my attention. My assistant normally handles my inbox, but this one seemed urgent. Out of curiosity, I opened it to find Jonathan's message. Please cancel all subscriptions for my email address. My business is closing. I routinely hear sad stories like this, yet another investor leaving the business. I tried once to determine the failure rate of real estate investors, and the best source I could find was a post on a real estate forum that claimed it's 90 to 95%. I think that number is a little high, but unfortunately, it might be close. Still, Jonathan shutting down his business caught me by surprise. For some reason, I wanted to know why. I met with him after speaking at an event when he walked up to me, introduced himself, and we talked for a while. He's a great guy. His real estate investment goal was to replace his income so he could spend more time with his wife and 4 kids. I replied to Jonathan, I'm sorry to hear you are closing your business. Can I ask why? I hoped that he would respond, but doubted he would. Over the years, I have asked other investors the same question many times, and I rarely get a response. It is like they have closed the book on that part of their lives and are on to the next chapter. I can relate to that mindset because I was a statistic too. My first 4 forays into real estate investing did not work out. I understood and respected when other investors took a hit and moved on. We each handle the roller coaster differently. Later that day, I checked my inbox and saw Jonathan actually had replied. His write-up was detailed, an excellent postmortem review. But here is the important part. I tried to do everything myself. Instead of hiring some help, I also focused on forming an LLC, worrying about our website, and paying for too many systems that I was not using. I tried to solve all the problems before they became problems. Soon, I became frustrated and quit marketing and mailing. I got burnt out going at it alone. I've seen Jonathan's story repeat so many times. It's painful. And every time, as if I remember my own investing failures, I can feel those investors' dreams and hopes fading into the sunset. I had more exposure to these stories than most. I have taught nearly 2,000 entrepreneurs how to use real estate as their way to freedom. I've seen them on their first days in the business and sometimes witnessed their last. Each time one of them moves on, I hear their dreams shouting, please don't give up on me. As a real estate investor entrepreneur, you share the same pains and struggles as any other founder. One of the most common is being overwhelmed. You start with a thought, a dream, a goal. It lives in your head, and then you give it life. You take something intangible and manifest it into the physical world by doing something that most people never will. Start a company. According to research by Statistica, you are in a small group. Only 7% of adults in the United States own and operate a business. Starting a company is hard. You have a lot to do to get it off the ground. As Jonathan wrote, there are LLCs to form, a website to create, mailing and marketing to do, and systems to build. And that's just the big stuff. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of micro tasks that need your attention, not to mention juggling all this with your day job and your personal life. Between the task, the job, and the family obligations, you begin to feel tired and burnt out. Self-doubt creeps in, and you start questioning everything. Your inner critic trolls know you are on the ropes, so they line up to take turns taunting you. You try to do and fix everything, yet the list keeps getting longer, and it feels like there is no light at the end of the tunnel. Maintaining the fight takes grit, perseverance, and a burning desire. If the trolls catch you in an exhausted, beat down moment, it's easy to tap out and quit. Seeing the very opportunity that gave you hope and excitement about achieving your dreams begin to suck the life out of you begin to suck the life from you is crushing. I have been on that roller coaster and it's not fun, but there is hope. There is hope and a path forward. I first got the real estate bug in 1994 and made 5 attempts to become a professional investor. The first 4 tries never quite took off, forcing me to stay in my day job. In late 2014, I decided to give real estate investing one more try. Unlike the previous 4 attempts, I needed this venture to work. My time in corporate America was running out. I had to take my shot. 9 months later, I was still struggling to gain traction, and my inner critic trolls were beating me down, and I was close to quitting. In that moment of weakness, though, I discovered a system that worked for me and realized that I had the skills and confidence to navigate these challenges. My system, pulled together from years of experience managing global teams, was based on prioritizing the most important activities in the business. This homegrown approach finally gave me the traction I needed to break out. I overcame the resistance and eventually, after developing and refining the system, achieved my dream achieved my dreams of time and income freedom. That final successful attempt at real estate investing began with $10,000. 17 months later, it became my full-time gig. It was a 20-year journey from my first exposure to real estate investing to the life of my dreams. I want that life for you now, not in 20 years. My first exposure to Mike Michalowicz was through his book, The Profit First. In 2020, when Mike released Fix This Next, I ordered it immediately, and it quickly became one of my favorite books. I then went back and read The Pumpkin Plan and reread Clockwork, all of them great books. But I felt a deep, instant connection with Fix This Next. What captivated me was that Mike had managed to codify the steps I had taken to gain traction in the early days of my business. It was as if he had watched what I did and found a way to both eloquently translate and polish the process. Mike's Fix This Next process was great, but I felt it lacked the pieces I needed as a real estate investor. Like a chef using others' recipes as a base, I began to build my own version of Fix This Next. I tweaked Mike's process and frameworks, adding the core needs that apply to us and removing the ones that don't. I modified the system to address the greatest challenge facing all real estate entrepreneurs, completing all those tasks. I made it work for us. So after reading Jonathan's reply, I called him and we spoke. I asked him to reconsider. Don't do it. Don't throw in the towel. I have an idea. But it was too late. As I suspected, he was on to his next chapter. Jonathan summarized the struggle. I have never been an entrepreneur and had no idea that I and I alone would determine how my business would succeed or fail. I guess I didn't realize how much time and effort this would take. I wrote this book to share my approach with the real estate investing community. I need to share it with you and to do my part to reduce the number of investors who quit and move on to another chapter. If you struggle to get it all done, there is a solution. Rather than run from emergency to emergency and try to handle everything, identify which problem you need to fix next. You will learn how to do that in this book. Does my system work? I began applying my version of Fix This Next, which I call the Fix This Next for real estate investors, to my investing business in 2020. When I did, my business took off. From 2020 to 2024, we increased our revenues 1,000%, becoming one of the largest investment firms in our space. Achieving growth of this nature produces a lot of growing pains. Every day we were hit with new challenges, a new fire to put out. Knowing we couldn't solve all the issues at once, we applied the Fix This Next for real estate investors principles. We addressed our most pressing problem first. Through teaching, I have seen those that follow this method approach also gain traction more quickly. It has worked for me and many others, and it will work for you. By the end of this book, you will have a framework to identify your business's most pressing needs so that you can replace your income and achieve time freedom.
Good intro.
Thank you.
Good intro, Scott.
Thank you.
Did you also do an audiobook since I'm listening to you read? Did you do one?
I did do the audiobook, and it's it's stuck in Amazon ACX, stuck with an ACX issue that
Oh,
it's not out, but
soon.
soon, yes. And but it is on Find a Voice. There's a little technicality because um so look, my middle name, my middle name is Scott. My last name obviously is Todd. And when I search for, Scott Todd's, well, there's a lot of them. There's even a radio show, Scott and Todd. And so I was thinking like, okay, how do we do this? So I decided to leverage my first initial into the cover and, on my website, social media, everything. So I went back and changed basically everything to kind of get that traffic in Google, which worked. It was fine. The problem is that the cover has my first initial, Scott Todd, and when we recorded the audiobook, um, we recorded as copyright Scott Todd, narrated by Scott Todd, and ACX says you're not the same person.
No, you're not B. Scott Todd.
Right. And so I either have to change the cover, um,
No, just change the audio in the
change the credits.
file. Just
Yeah.
change the credits. Easy peasy.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what we did. And now we're waiting for it to go back through the approval process. So
So you mentioned the model that Mike uses and Fixes Next, and then yours, which is called IPP. I'd love to know just a little bit more about, how did you adapt it and what's different
yeah.
about your model as it relates to your specific reader?
Mine's better. No, I'm kidding. The thing about Mike's model is Mike's model goes after all businesses, and it starts with sales. So it's based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And if you think about Maslow, there's 5 levels of Maslow, and the business priority pyramid that Mike created is based on 5 levels. The base being sales, and the whole point of that is cash going into the business is oxygen.
Yes.
And the same thing applies to real estate investing, but it's not necessarily about sales because it starts with capital. It starts with finding capital, which is not mentioned in, the business priority pyramid.
I'm gonna stop you. Every time you say it, I feel like you're saying business party pyramid.
Oh, really?
And I feel like that would be a cool thing to have
That
too.
would be even
What's the
better.
business party pyramid?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Just
No,
had
it's
to
okay.
say that.
So, capital is the starting point of real estate investing. It is a very
Yeah,
capital intensive business. So if you don't have capital, then it's hard to go get deals. It's
yeah,
hard to close deals. And too many people in real estate investing, they take this, and I'm sure that people have heard this even outside of it, is, oh, find a good deal and the money will appear. We hear that all the time in life, but the reality is that you can find a great deal, but the money will not appear. That is a myth. It might appear, but I can point to so many cases where somebody has gone out, found a good deal, put it under contract, spent tens of thousands of dollars of like due diligence cost and cost to lock it up and to do all their research, and the time ticks up. And by the way, their earnest money, and then the time ticks away. They don't have the money to fund the deal, and they lose it. So they lose thousands of dollars, and that's what takes people out early on, is that they take the sequence wrong. They go get the deal and then they go get the capital or try to find the capital. And so in the investor priority pyramid, what I go through is I say, hey, you just need capital to do your next deal, whatever that is. If it's a house, you're not looking for your next 10 deals, 100 deals, you're looking for your very next deal. And some deals, some deals might take smaller amounts than others. So if you have that money, then you're golden. Then go find the deal. And then you go find the money for your next deal. And it's like this loop. And then, you kind of go through there. But so we kind of have the similar concepts, but especially at the base level, we're adding different components. For example, I talk about going and finding your customers to sell to. and your marketing. And when Mike talks about that as well, but he also talks about collecting on your bills. Well, it's a little bit different in real estate investing. So we modified that part. A lot of the other levels are similar, but there might be some nuance into um, the application of it. And then probably the weirdest thing is that most people, as you move up in the ladder, it becomes about legacy. And real estate is really all about legacy. But what happens a lot of times is that real estate gets to the next level, that next generation, and it's typically sold off. Like somebody builds this portfolio of homes or whatever it is, and then they pass away, and the next generation just says, "Sell it. We just take the lump sum and be done with it." But maybe there's more to it, and that's the argument that I make in those higher levels is what if you had business leadership turn, and what if you had a leadership group that was designed to make this business last forever? What would the outcome be, and how would you treat it if you knew that you were not just building something that's going to pass on to your relatives as assets that they could sell, but you're building a company that would last forever?
I love that. I love that. And what's the feedback that you've received on the
Yeah.
IPP?
I did a like a launch party uh, the day the book came out. It was a 2 hour and 42 minute live stream. I tried to go for 3 hours. I got tired. And I wrapped up. So 2 hours and 42 minutes. And some of the feedback that I got from that was, oh wow, I never really thought about, the fact that the real estate investing can help us live our purpose, right? Because a lot of people think, okay, it's just about me. It's just about income for me. It's just about, my life. But I make the argument in the book that it's really about, at some point it is about you. In the beginning, it has to be about you, because if you don't survive and you don't make it, well, then your dreams go away. But then after your dreams are met, it's really about the people that report to you, and it's about their lives, and it's about your community that you're serving, whoever that community is, and how can you make their lives better, and how can you use your assets and what you've built to be a positive force in the world, to create the world that you want to create. It's, to me, it's a lot like what AJ says is, what's the change that you want to see in the world? And so it's kind of a different approach to that same question.
I love that too. I love that it's so funny. I wouldn't think of real estate investing as being that deep, honestly, Scott.
Yeah. I mean, typically it's not. I think that that's where I struggled with the book, because when you think about the levels, there's three levels at the base of the pyramid, and that's deal flow that I mentioned, profit, and order. And that's about building efficiencies for the business. And that is what makes up, and this is, Mike's words, that makes up the getting levels of the pyramid. Above that, you have impact and legacy. And impact is about transformation, legacy is about permanency. And in those higher levels, that's where you're giving. And when you're in that role, you're forced to think differently about your business. You're forced to think differently about the impact that you're trying to make, because it's not just about, oh, I'm gonna do this thing. I'm gonna raise my rents, because I do make the argument you have to raise your rents, but I'm not gonna raise the rents just because it makes me more money. It's really about how do we support this ongoing business, and at the same time give back to the people that we want to help. And a lot of people have told me, I never thought of it like that. It's like a path forward. One guy told me, he's like, this helped me think about my actual why, which people talk about all the time, but he's like, this is showing me what is possible.
I love that. So a lot of people talk about find your why. It's all ubiquitous, but I don't think a lot of people understand what it means as a driving force or how to access it. So I love that you're talking about that. I remember, Scott, I once interviewed a person for a book. She was a real estate investor, so one of your people, but her mission was to completely revamp this impoverished community. And so she was working with all these people who were mostly under housing assistance, but working with them for their jobs and with a daycare and just trying to help them, you know, deal with their lives, and then how the crime rate went down in the neighborhood and how everything changed in the neighborhood, because of her investment in these apartment buildings that had been basically left, um, and nobody wanted them because there wasn't going to be this big profit. But she had a different why.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's so interesting because I've talked to countless real estate investors and I've kind of led strategy calls with them. Like, okay, you want, you're doing this. Let's figure out what you want first. And you go through their first year. Okay, what does the first year look like to you? What's gonna take for it to be a success? If you do this, it will be a success. And people say, oh, I want to make this amount of money, or I want to, do this, or I want to be able to quit my job or whatever it is. Okay, cool. Okay, well, that's not going to happen in 1 year, but we can make progress to get there. What does the second year look like? Or the third year? What does this look like? And so they start to tell you, okay, now I'm to the point where I'm getting closer to being able to fund my life and everything. And you go, okay, great. When you do that, what are you going to do after that? And I think most people, when you ask people, their first intention is to say something like, "Man, I'm going to be on the beach in the Bahamas, enjoying life." And you're like, "Okay," or "I'll be playing golf." And you're like, "Okay, that's good for a week, maybe two. Then you're going to be bored. Then what? Then what does life look like? It's not just about chasing the deals anymore. What now? What's the big thing?" And sometimes you ask people that question, they don't know. They really don't know. They're like, that's it. That's all I want. And that's all they can see at the time. And there's nothing wrong with that. But then you ask people like, hey, now what? Why are you like, what's next? And I've had people tell me such incredible things. Like, I had one guy tell me that he wanted to be able to replace his income to support his life so that he could spend all of his day, and he wanted a business that supported it on its own so that he could spend his entire time chasing down human traffickers. And, he was running this organization or part of this organization to where they would literally chase in America, right? Literally chase down human traffickers and set them up and do whatever. And I coached once a TV doctor. I mean, not like an actor doctor. She is like one of the medical shows from the doctors. She was a client of mine, and where I coached her, and it's she wanted to be able to have the income and the systems to support women's health throughout like urban America. And so you look at this, and you're like, hey, it's not about the dollar. It's not always about the dollar. It's about having the money so that you can support a bigger mission or cause. And I think that that's what gets missed a lot of times with real estate investors because, look, we start off and we think, oh, it's just about me and providing the life that I want. But at some point, that's boring.
Yeah.
You know, at some point, you got to go bigger.
That's why we love you, Scott. We
Thank you.
you're one of those, as my mom used to say, onion people, because you keep peeling back the layers and there's just more, there's just more, and there's just more there, and that's you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, what's the next excerpt that you have for us, Scott?
Okay. The next one is really kind of funny enough, talking about what we were just talking about, which is the getting or the giving, right? And when you think about the giving versus the getting, there is a change that has to take place in your mindset about, hey, it's no longer about me and what I want to do. It's really about what this broader picture is. But at the same time, you have to be careful that you're not giving too soon, right? You can have this mission of, I want to do something broader, but you can also do it way too soon. And then as a result, jeopardize the whole thing. And that's what this part is about. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So, when Blake Michalowicz and his sister were selected as contestants for the second season of the TV show The Amazing Race, he didn't realize the degree which it would change his life. Even though winning the grand prize of $1 million would mean a totally different lifestyle for them, they didn't win. They finished in third place and missed out on the prize money. Still, the show led to an experience that transformed Michalowicz and the world. The Amazing Race is a reality TV show in which teams of two race around the world. At each stop, they face various challenges that test both their mental and physical abilities. During the 21 to 30-day competition, the teams are sent to different locations around the world. One of the stops on Michalowicz' adventure was Argentina. During the competition, there was no time to stop and experience the country. You are there for a limited time, and then you jet off to yet another country. After narrowly missing winning the competition, Michalowicz returned to his life as an entrepreneur. In 2006, after closing his fourth business, Michalowicz needed a break from his entrepreneurial journey. Remember when we talked about the lack of downtime in the last chapter? As a type of sabbatical, Michalowicz chose to return to Argentina, but this time he wanted to immerse himself in the culture. Michalowicz said, I spent my days learning the national dance, the tango, playing the national sport, polo, and of course, drinking the national wine, Malbec. The time away allowed Michalowicz to explore the country, traveling not just to the large cities, but also experiencing what life was like in the countryside. While visiting one of the poorer rural areas, he observed that many people, especially children, were walking around without shoes. He learned from a volunteer worker that the lack of shoes was a result of family finances. For these families, shoes were a luxury, but they were a required part of the school uniform. Without them, the children were unable to attend school. As he thought about the lack of shoes and how it affected the children, Michalowicz' entrepreneurial mind activated. He realized that this was an opportunity. Rather than rely on charities to fill the gap, why not create a company with a social mission to do it? Michalowicz went on to create the shoe company Tom's. His initial goal was to provide 250 pair of shoes for one town in Argentina. What came next exceeded his vision. Tom's shoes rocketed to fame thanks to its buy one, get one BOGO program. When you purchase a pair of Tom's shoes, the company would donate a similar pair to a person in need. This product-based giving strategy allowed Tom's to scale quickly, thanks in part to the free press it received. Consumers connected with the company's mission and fueled organic word-of-mouth marketing. Its BOGO strategy set it apart from the competition, making it unique in the crowded shoe market. However, the very program that propelled Tom's to succeed soon revealed its flaws. As the saying goes, no good deed goes unpunished. Tom's giving program became a burden on the company. First came the negative publicity. The free shoes arrived in developing countries and began to disrupt local economies. As the donations flooded the market, local shoemakers saw a decline in demand. Complaints soared, eroding some of the goodwill Tom's had created. Talk about unintended consequences. As Tom's popularity continued to grow, competitors began to copy their shoe designs and the BOGO strategy. Less expensive knockoffs entered the market, leading to market saturation, which resulted in declining sales. Tom's needed to support its BOGO program even as profits declined. As Michalowicz put it, giving is really hard. What made giving at scale difficult was the resources the company needed to allocate to the program. A dedicated team supported the program, finding the areas in which to donate and handle all of the logistics. These resources were not a burden on the company while it was growing. However, as sales declined, the overhead needed to support the program strained the company, contributing to its declining financial stability. By 2019, Tom's was losing money and nearing bankruptcy. Michalowicz ran out of options and turned the company over to its creditors, allowing Tom's to avoid bankruptcy. The new CEO and management team eliminated the BOGO program. They chose to replace it with direct donations. The new program pledges up to a third of the company's profits to charitable causes. Instead of donating shoes to developing countries, they donated funds to grassroots organizations that worked on issues core to the company. In 2023, the company donated 1.7 million of its profits. The Tom story exemplifies the importance of attending to your company's needs before turning your attention to giving programs. Your ability to impact your community and team members requires a strong foundation.
I love that. It's such a tight, nice excerpt that takes us from one place to the next, tells a complete story, gives new information, has the full teaching point, taught us something new. That's classic Scott. That is a classic Scott excerpt right there. I love it. One thing that I love about you is you like to bring in unexpected stories into a book, and you keep doing that. We're seeing that as you're working on your next book. I think I'm can make a safe assumption. I really feel like you have the writing bug, and I remember when you got it. So let's see if I'm right. If it was around this time. Do you recall that I used to always say, well, you'd say, well, what do you think of this idea? And do you think that could work? And what do I always say? Let's
Try it.
try it and
Yeah.
see. And I remember, and you said to me, I remember you said, I have this idea and I didn't know how it could fit. And I remembered you told me I should just try it. And wasn't that something about your grandfather or your
Yeah.
uncle? And there's an
Yeah.
ashtray.
Yeah. Yeah. My grandfather.
I don't know
Yeah.
how I remember this, but
Yeah. I don't know how you do it either.
the ashtray story.
Yeah.
And you let yourself try it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's very good.
Yeah.
Right? Am I right that that's a kind of when you got the bug?
Yeah. I think that, I think what happens is, especially looking at it from at least where I started, is, you start to write this thing and, okay, it's a time commitment to write it. And then you go down this path. And I think that you almost become a victim to, uh, I mean, being in it, right? Like the sunk cost fallacy. So you become a victim of the sunk cost fallacy. Like, oh my gosh, I just spent 3 hours writing this thing. And you look at it and you're like, it's not necessarily working, or I've painted myself into a corner or something. And we look at it and we're like, okay, well, what do I do now? Well, you just go back and try it again, right? Like put that to the side or move on to another section and then come back to it. And then when you come back to it, maybe you can find a way out of it or how to connect it, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's just out and you just do it again and you start all over again. But I think that giving yourself permission to try that, and I see myself doing that a lot too, is like if I'm building a course or a marketing material, is okay, and I got that from this course, is like this program is, hey, let's just see what that looks like. Yeah, it doesn't look good, so take it out. Or I don't like the way that is, take it out. Let's try this other thing. And there's nothing wrong with trying that on, trying it on, if you will. And if you think about it, that's what we do just in life, right? Like we go and we're going to buy some clothes. What do? We try it on. I don't like it. Put it back, put it on the rack. It's not for me. Or, okay, I like it. I think I can work with this. And I think that you have to give yourself permission to go do that with your writing too. Your writing, your marketing. You can't necessarily expect perfection from the get-go.
Well, I think that's when you got the bugs
Yeah.
because I'm going to tell you that your writing changed.
Yeah.
And now you were bringing all sorts of fresh stuff in there.
Yeah.
And now that's just what you do. Now
Yeah.
that's a hallmark. And you're going to hear this from people who read your books. I love reading Scott Todd's books because I always get stories I never heard of. Or remember, it's also can be the stories we have heard, but there's a new way of seeing it.
Yeah.
Or an information we that was left out, or a postscript we haven't heard about yet, which you gave us with Tom's.
Yeah.
So I love that quality about you. At what point did you decide I'm not just writing one book, I'm an author, and start the second book?
Um, I think it was while I was still writing this one because I said to my wife, I said, yeah, well, my second book, and she's like, you're not even done with your first one yet. I'm like, I know, but I got all these ideas now.
Mm.
And it's interesting because like I've heard you and Mike talk on your podcast about how many Mike's always had these, which I think it was like he had 25 books and you've written 10, 11, 12. He's still got 25 books. And, I start to see, I never could understand how that was possible, but then I start to see like, oh, well, wait a minute. Um, hey, I'm writing this book right now. Like literally I'm writing a book right now, a second book. And all of a sudden I start to say like, uh, I could go deeper on this one thing. And your temptation is to want to like stop and just go deeper on that one thing or to then pivot and redo the whole book. It's like, well, maybe this book should come before that one. And then I just remind myself that, Profit First came out of a section in another book, right?
Yep.
Like it was a section and then it
Tiny.
became a whole book.
Yep.
Okay.
Tiny section.
That's right.
Mhm.
So there's nothing wrong to me. There's nothing wrong with making a note of that and saying, okay, I'm going to come back to that one or potentially, or to see how the world reacts to it.
How does it play? Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Everyone, I want you to stick around because we're going to do something for Scott that he really needs, by the way. So we're going to make sure we get this done. But before we do that, Scott, I want to ask you the question that I ask everybody at the end, which you already alluded to earlier, which is what is the change you want to see in the world through this book?
Yeah. So the change that I want to see, and it doesn't just apply to real estate investors, it applies to anybody that owns a business, is I want them to win at business. I want people to be able to create the life that they want to create and in a way that they control the outcome. There's so many people that talk about, oh, I want to have a business. I want to own a business. And that's like this dream and it's this pastime. And the reality is that so many people will never do it because it's overwhelming. There's a lot to do. But for the people that go down that path, it's easy to get sidetracked. It's easy to feel overwhelmed. It's easy to feel like you're losing or not winning. And at the end of the day, you are winning. You're winning just by the fact that you even did it because only 7% of the population will do it. Okay. So the fact that you're in that small group, you're already winning. Now, what you have to do is you have to be able to step back and say, hey, look, there's a path here that I can follow. And it's not necessarily, a smooth path, but there's gonna be hard times. But if you follow the path and stay consistent and just keep focusing on the right things at the right time and just ignore everything else and give yourself grace, you'll be okay. And you will succeed and you will create the life that you want. And then as a result, you'll be able to create the world that you want.
You should see the chat. Everyone's like, we're getting life advice here from Scott during this Monday night reading. We're so proud of you, Scott, and
Thank
we're
you.
ready to have you for the next one. When does the next book come out, by the way?
September of 2027.
September of 27, one of our first. So I think we got a few 27 titles now on deck. So fantastic. Scott, we're proud of you, and we're
Thank
going to
you.
see you in these parts again.
I'll be back.
Okay, thanks
Thank
everyone for
you.
showing up.
Thank you,
See you
AJ.
soon.